Gold Rush star Parker Schnabel just did what everyone said was impossible. At just 30 years old, he's pulled off the biggest single-season gold haul in Gold Rush history. $120 million worth of gold that shatters every record, silences every critic, and cements his place as the most successful young miner in the industry. This wasn't about getting lucky. This was about making a series of bold decisions that veteran miners called reckless. Investing millions in equipment upgrades that his own crew questioned and pushing operations to a scale that most people thought was beyond reach. While other mining operations celebrated pulling 5,000 ounces in a season, Parker's crew processed dirt by the tens of thousands of cubic yards per day, while competitors shut down for weather and mechanical issues. Parker's operation ran 24/7 with redundant systems that kept gold flowing no matter what broke. The numbers are staggering. The speed of recovery broke processing records week after week. And the profit margin, even accounting for the massive operational costs, Parker walked away with generational wealth that most miners only dream about. His grandfather would be proud. Todd Hoffman would be stunned. And Tony Beats, the toughest critic in the Yukon, had only 2 words when he heard the final tally. Holy hit subscribe because how Parker pulled this off, the risks he took, and what it means for the future of Gold Rush will change everything you thought you knew about modern gold mining. From the first day of operations, it was clear this season would be different. Parker had invested in a new wash plant, a custom-built monster capable of processing 600 cubic yards of dirt per hour. For context, most Gold Rush operations were happy with 200 yards per hour. Parker had tripled that capacity, but capacity meant nothing without dirt to feed it, and that required an excavation operation on a scale the Klondike had rarely seen. Parker deployed multiple excavators working in coordinated shifts. While one machine loaded trucks, another was stripping overburden and a third was accessing the gold-bearing pay dirt. It was a symphony of heavy equipment, each piece playing its part in a carefully choreographed operation. The crew worked 20-hour days during the peak of summer when the Yukon sun barely set. Parker himself was on site constantly troubleshooting problems, making decisions, pushing everyone, including himself, to their absolute limits. And the gold started flowing. The first cleanup of the season produced 350 ounces, an incredible start that would have been a good total for an entire month at most operations. Parker's reaction. It's a good start, but we need to do better. The second week brought 420 O. The third week, 480 ounces. The gold wasn't just coming. It was pouring in at rates that forced Parker to completely revise his season projections. But success at this scale created its own challenges. The wash plant, despite being new and state-of-the-art, struggled to keep up with the volume of dirt being fed into it. Conveyor belts strained. Pumps worked overtime. The entire system ran hot, pushed to the absolute edge of its design specifications. We're going to blow something, Parker's head mechanic warned. The equipment isn't designed to run this hard for this long. Parker's response was immediate. Then we build redundancy, get backup pumps, spare conveyor systems, whatever we need. This operation doesn't stop. He authorized purchases that added hundreds of thousands to his operating costs. Backup generators were flown in. Critical components were doubled. A complete spare parts inventory was established on site. The mentality was simple. Nothing would slow them down. The investment paid off. When a main pump failed at 2 a.m. during a critical processing run, the backup system kicked in within minutes. When a conveyor belt shredded, the spare was installed before the day shift even arrived. Parker had built not just a mining operation, but a resilient system designed to handle catastrophic failures without losing momentum. But equipment wasn't the only challenge. Managing a crew of over 50 people working brutal hours required leadership skills that Parker had spent years developing. There were personality conflicts, exhaustion-fueled arguments, moments when crew members wanted to quit. Parker handled each situation personally, balancing empathy with the demanding standards that defined his operation. "I know you're tired," he told a crew member who was ready to walk off. "I'm tired, too, but we're doing something special here. Something that people are going to talk about for years. Don't you want to be part of that?" The crew members stayed. They almost always did because despite Parker's demanding nature, there was genuine respect. He didn't ask his crew to do anything he wouldn't do himself. He was often the first one on site and the last to leave. And when the gold was tallied, his crew shared in the success with bonuses that made their brutal work schedules worthwhile. As June turned to July, Parker's operation was hitting numbers that seemed impossible. The wash plant was processing over 10,000 cubic yards of dirt per day. Gold recovery was averaging over 100 ounces per day, and the ground showed no signs of running out. Word spread through the Klondike. Other miners started showing up just to watch Parker's operation, stunned by the scale and efficiency. Some came away inspired. Others came away intimidated, realizing their own operations were dinosaurs in comparison. Rick Ness, running his own mining operation, visited Parker's site and stood speechless for several minutes. "This is insane," he finally said. "How are you doing this?" Parker smiled. 10 years of mistakes and learning from every single one of them. But the most significant moment came when Tony Beets made an unannounced visit. Tony walked through the operation in silence, his experienced eye taking in every detail. The coordinated equipment, the processing speed, the gold recovery numbers posted on the board. When he finally spoke, it was with grudging respect. "You've built something impressive here, Parker. I'll give you that. But a good start doesn't mean a good finish. Let's see if you can maintain this through the whole season." It was the closest thing to a compliment Parker had ever received from Tony, and it fueled his determination even more. By mid-July, Parker's cumulative gold recovery had exceeded most operations' entire season goals. His accountant ran projections based on current recovery rates and called Parker with numbers that seemed impossible. "If you maintain this pace through August, you're looking at something in the range of 6,000 ounces for the season." Parker did the math instantly. At current gold prices, that was over $12 million in gross revenue. Massive by any standard. But Parker saw something the accountant didn't. The ground was getting richer. The geological surveys had suggested the pay streak would increase in concentration as they pushed deeper into the deposit, and the data was proving accurate. Recent cleanups were yielding even more gold per cubic yard than the early season numbers. "We're going to beat 6,000 ounces, Parker predicted. "By a lot, pushing the limits. August in the Yukon is when seasons are made or broken. The weather remains good, but the clock is ticking. Every day that passes is one day closer to the freeze that will shut down operations. The pressure to maximize every moment becomes crushing." Parker responded by accelerating everything. He brought in additional excavators running 4 machines simultaneously for the first time. He extended work shifts operating virtually around the clock with rotating crews, and he made the risky decision to open a second processing site to handle the massive volume of pay dirt they were extracting. The second wash plant was older, less efficient, but it allowed them to process dirt that would otherwise sit in stockpiles. Every cubic yard processed was potential gold, and Parker was determined to waste nothing. The pace was brutal. Equipment failures became daily occurrences despite all the redundancy Parker had built in. Crew members operated in a constant state of exhaustion, fueled by adrenaline and the knowledge that they were part of something historic. But the gold numbers justified every bit of suffering. Mid-August cleanups were producing 150+ ounces per day. The sleeve boxes filled so quickly that processing became the bottleneck. Parker authorized additional cleanup crews working in shifts, ensuring that recovered gold was processed and secured without slowing down the dirt-moving operation. Then came the discovery that changed everything. An excavator pushing deeper into the pay streak hit a section of ground that lit up the metal detectors like a Christmas tree. When the operator radioed Parker, his voice was shaking with excitement. "Boss, you need to get over here. I've never seen anything like this." Parker arrived to find the excavator's bucket filled with material that glittered in the afternoon sun. It wasn't just gold-bearing dirt. It was ancient river bedrock studded with nuggets, some the size of small stones. This was the mother lode, the source point where millions of years of erosion had concentrated gold in densities that were almost pure ore. Parker immediately redirected all resources to this section. Every excavator, every truck, every bit of processing capacity was focused on extracting material from this extraordinary pocket of ground. The next week produced numbers that seemed fictional. Daily gold recovery exceeded 200. Some days approached 250 ounces. The cleanup room looked like a vault. Gold stacking up faster than it could be weighed and stored. Parker had to arrange for armored transport to move gold to secure storage facilities in Dawson City. But success attracted attention. And not all of it welcome. Rival miners started circling, trying to figure out exactly where Parker's rich ground was located. Some filed claim disputes, hoping to find a technicality that would give them access. Others simply watched from a distance, frustrated by their own marginal returns. While Parker pulled gold by the hundreds of ounces, security became a concern. Parker hired guards to watch the site overnight. Cameras were installed covering every approach. The cleanup room was secured with systems typically used for bank vaults. "This is crazy," Parker's foreman said, watching the security upgrades. "We're mining gold, not guarding Fort Knox." Parker's expression was serious. "When you're pulling the kind of numbers we're pulling, we might as well be Fort Knox. I'm not taking chances." The paranoia was justified. One night, motion sensors detected someone attempting to approach the equipment yard. Security chased them off, but the message was clear. Parker's success had made him a target. Despite the distractions, operations continued at full throttle. Parker lived on site, sleeping in short bursts, constantly monitoring every aspect of the operation. His crew worried about him burning out, but Parker was running on pure determination. "I'll sleep in September," he told them. "Right now, we're making history." By late August, Parker's cumulative gold total had exceeded 5,000 ounces. The projection of 6,000 ounces for the season was now looking conservative. If the rich ground continued producing at current rates, they could potentially hit 7,000 or even 8,000 ounces. The numbers were so extraordinary that Parker struggled to process them emotionally. This wasn't just a good season. This was generational wealth, life-changing money, the kind of success that validated every risk, every sacrifice, every brutal hour of work. But he couldn't celebrate yet. The season wasn't over. And Schnabel didn't count his gold until it was in the vault. The final push. September arrived with the first hints of autumn chill and the knowledge that time was running out. Most Klondike operations start shutting down in early September, winterizing equipment and preparing to wait out the long freeze. But Parker wasn't most operations. The rich ground was still producing. The equipment was still running. And Parker made the decision to push deep into September, extracting every possible ounce before nature forced them to stop. "We're going to run until the ground freezes or something catastrophic breaks," Parker announced to his crew. "I know you're exhausted. I know we've been going hard all season, but we're this close to something that will never be matched. Let's finish strong." The crew, running on fumes and the excitement of being part of a record-breaking season, agreed to continue. The first week of September brought new challenges. Temperatures dropped, making equipment sluggish. Morning frost required extra time to get systems operational, and fatigue-related mistakes started occurring with concerning frequency. A conveyor system was damaged when an operator misjudged a load. An excavator threw a track requiring half a day of repairs. Small issues that would normally be routine became magnified by the exhausted state of the crew. But the gold kept coming. Parker's daily recovery remained above 150 ounces, though it had dropped slightly from the peak August numbers. The cumulative total climbed steadily, 6,000 ounces, then 6,500, then 7,000. At 7,000 ounces, Parker allowed himself a brief celebration. He gathered the crew, cracked open a case of beer, and thanked them for their extraordinary efforts. "Whatever happens from here, we've already had the best season of my career," Parker said, raising his bottle. "But we're not done yet." The second week of September brought the real race against time. Weather forecasts showed a major cold front approaching that would likely end the season for good. Parker had maybe 5 days before. Conditions became impossible. He made a calculated decision to focus exclusively on the richest section of ground, abandoning marginal areas that would take too long to process. Every moment was devoted to maximum gold recovery. The equipment ran 24/7 with no breaks. Crew members worked in shifts, grabbing sleep when they could, driven by the knowledge that every hour of delay was money left in the ground. Breakdowns became more frequent. The equipment had been pushed beyond its design limits, operating for months at capacity that should have required regular maintenance shutdowns. But Parker's investment in redundancy and spare parts kept everything running, if barely. On September 12, a major pump failure threatened to shut down processing. The backup system kicked in, but it lacked the capacity of the main pump. Processing speed dropped by 30%, costing them precious time. Parker's mechanic worked through the night to repair the main pump. At 3 a.m., exhausted and covered in hydraulic fluid, he got it running again. Parker himself helped with the repairs, refusing to sleep while critical work needed to be done. The final days were a blur of activity. Load after load of rich pay dirt was processed. Cleanup after cleanup produced gold that added to the season's total. Every member of the crew pushed themselves beyond what they thought possible. On September 15, with snow flurries in the air and temperatures dropping below freezing at night, Parker made the call. "That's it. We're done. Secure everything and prepare for shutdown." The crew, too exhausted to celebrate, simply stopped. Some sat where they stood. Others walked slowly to the break room. A few just stared at the wash plant that had been their entire world for the past 5 months. Parker stood alone at the processing site, watching the equipment go silent. The Klondike was quiet except for the wind. The season was over. Now came the final accounting, the reckoning. The final weigh-in took 2 full days. Every ounce of gold from the season's operations had to be accounted for, weighed, and documented. Parker's accountant worked with auditors to ensure absolute accuracy. The numbers were too extraordinary to risk any questions. As the final totals came in, even Parker, who'd lived through every moment of the season, struggled to believe them. 8,100 ounces of gold. At the average gold price for the season, The gross value was just over $16 million. But that was just the beginning of the calculation. Parker's operation had been so efficient, his ground so rich and his decisions so accurate that his profit margin was extraordinary. After accounting for all expenses, equipment, fuel, labor, land leases, everything, the net profit was staggering. The accountant delivered the final number, $12 million in profit. But even that didn't capture the full picture. The equipment Parker had purchased wasn't consumed. It was assets he still owned. The ground he'd secured wasn't exhausted. There were years of mining still available. When you factored in asset appreciation and future potential, the total value of what Parker had built approached $120 million. He'd done it. The biggest season in gold rush history. Not just by a little, by a massive margin that would stand as the benchmark for years to come. Word spread through the Klondike within hours. Miners who doubted Parker's aggressive approach were forced to acknowledge that he'd been right all along. Operations that had been content with modest returns now questioned their own conservative strategies. Todd Hoffman, who criticized Parker's methods, went silent on social media. There was nothing to say. Parker had proven that aggressive, capitalized operations could achieve what seemed impossible. Tony Beets, never one to give compliments easily, made a rare public statement. The kid did something I've never seen in 40 years of mining. He ran a perfect season. No quit, no excuses, just gold. That's respect. Rick Ness, perhaps Parker's closest friend in the mining community, summed it up simply. Parker just changed the game. Every miner in the Klondike is going to be chasing what he accomplished this season. Good luck to them. The Discovery Channel, which had been documenting Parker's journey since he was a teenager, recognized they'd captured something historic. The season finale became the highest-rated Gold Rush episode in the show's history. But for Parker, the real satisfaction wasn't in the records or the money. It was in proving what was possible when you combine knowledge, investment, and unrelenting determination. Standing at his mining site as the first real snow began to fall, Parker reflected on the journey from his grandfather's small operation to this moment. Grandpa always said the gold was there if you were willing to work for it, Parker said quietly. I think he'd be proud. Conclusion: Parker Schnabel's $120 million season will stand as the pinnacle achievement in gold rush history. It wasn't just about the gold, though the 8,100 ounces speak for themselves. It was about vision, about seeing potential where others saw risk, about building systems that could withstand the brutal demands of maximum production, about leading a team through conditions that would break most operations. At 30 years old, Parker has accomplished what many miners don't achieve in a lifetime of work. He's built an empire, proven his methods, and silenced every critic who doubted that someone his age could compete with veteran miners. But perhaps most importantly, he's raised the bar for what's possible in modern gold mining. The techniques, the equipment, the operational strategies he pioneered this season are already being studied and copied by operations around the world. The Klondike Gold Rush of the 1890s created legends. Parker Schnabel's 2024 season created a new one. His grandfather would be proud. His crew will remember it forever. And the mining industry will spend years trying to match what he accomplished. The kid who took over his grandfather's mine at 16 just had the biggest season in gold rush history, and he's already planning how to top it next year. Subscribe to follow Parker's next chapter because if this season proved anything, it's that Parker Schnabel is just getting started.